Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you for watching this video about a new one-year program that I'll be running in 2025 called How to Be Really Happy and Love Your Life. And for the record, I'm really self-conscious that, oh God, are they going to think I look happy enough? Should I try to look happy? Is that going to, the kind of really happy that I'm talking about doesn't have to look like shiny happy. Really happy it just means that kind of when you close your eyes and go, you're really happy. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. You can have an absolutely crap day and be really happy. You can be upset, and as soon as you kind of come back to yourself, be back to being really happy. It's not something you would do for show. It's not, oh, well, I'm basically a happy person. Years ago, I did the Vanguard program in positive psychology connected with the University of Pennsylvania and the work of Martin Seligman. And it was cool. It was really interesting. And I remember there was one researcher they brought in who was sharing research on happiness. And she had all these exercises that she had developed to help people be happier. And a lot of them were exercises you may have tried because this was a while ago. And they've kind of come, things like gratitude lists and journaling and stuff that's now pretty mainstream. But at the time she was doing it, it was pretty radical. And I was completely taking notes. Like, this is clearly how one becomes happy. There is scientific research that shows that this is what one does to become happy. And then somebody from our group asked her, do you do the exercises every day? Because she said it was very important that you do these every day. And she said, well, no, I'm pretty happy anyways. And then somebody else said, well, does your partner do them? And he goes, oh no, my partner wouldn't have anything to do with them. And it was so interesting because something happened in my head. I suddenly went, oh, wait, I don't want to do things to be happy. I just want to be happy. And some of you will know the story, but if you're new to me and my work, you may not know the story of why it is that I teach and share what I teach and share. And I was a depressed, suicidal teenager, and the suicidal ideation stopped. If you want to watch what most people say is a really enjoyable TEDx talk called Why Aren't We Awesomer? You can hear the story of how that changed and why the suicidal ideation stopped. But I continued to be a high-functioning depressive throughout my 20s and 30s. And I was very high-functioning, and I was quite successful in the world. And I had, by most measures, a nice life. I just struggled. I struggled with my moods. I struggled with my psychology. I struggled with that I wasn't as successful as I wanted to be. I struggled with that maybe I wasn't as, happily married as my parents were. And I just had all of these doubts and worries and fears. And they were just so overwhelming that my system would just shut down. And I'd just go through periods of bleak depression. And then I'd find my way back, and I'd be okay, and I'd do techniques, and one of my books, my second book was filled with something called behavioral Prozac. So I'd come up with 10 things that if I got down, I could do as many of these 10 things as I needed to, and they'd bring me back to life, and then I'd be okay. And that was the goal. If I could just be okay, that would be great. That would be victory. And then I watched a video, a friend recommended I watch a video with a Scottish mystic who I'd never heard of named Sid Banks. And he'd had a spiritual epiphany in the 1970s, and he taught up until his death. I think it was either 2009 or 2011. And I came across him, I guess, quite close before he died. So this video I watched in 2008. And I wasn't that interested because, look, I was a high-functioning depressive. I wasn't really looking for that to change. But I was curious, and I valued my friend's judgment. And the video was called The Secret to Life. And in it, Sid said, Every human being is sitting in the middle of mental health. They just don't know it. And I quite literally spit beer out my nose. Like I was drinking a beer, watching this video, and it wasn't because I thought it was funny. It was because I realized that it was true. And for the next 10 minutes, I snort, laughed, and cried. Because it was such a relief to see that I wasn't broken. And the very first coherent thought that I had was, oh, babies don't need therapy. We're born happy. And it changed everything for me. And the idea of being depressive as the best I could hope for, the idea of being okay with being messed up, lost all its appeal. And I just became fascinated by how would life be different if I was already really happy before anything changed. And turns out what happens is you fall in love with your life as it is, but then also when you are really happy and love your life, the circumstances of your life often begin to change. Sometimes because it occurs to you to change them, but surprisingly often, they just do. So, we're going to get together for a year. We're going to spend 20 days together live or live streaming in Los Angeles and London. And our first 4 days together are going to be in LA. And we're going to look at what it is to go beyond ego, to become more of who we already are. Now, I used to think ego was just arrogance. Oh yeah, ego's bad. You shouldn't be arrogant. But another Sid Banks thing that just sort of made me go, wait, what? Was when he said, if you drop your ego, your image of self-importance, and just be you, whoever that is, you'll find the secret to heaven here on earth. You'll find out that you're not who you think you are. You're something nicer, far better, really nice. And I suddenly saw, oh, ego is just a word for my self-image. Now, I had studied self-image psychology and psycho-cybernetics and all these different things that were designed to create a positive self-image and, and a self-concept that worked. And they all kind of helped a little. But I suddenly thought, what would happen if I just drop all of that? If I stopped trying to be somebody and just be whatever's left, just be who I am. And to my surprise, it was really nice. much, much better. Really nice. And so we're going to explore that. We're going to get to know ourselves beyond our egos, beyond our personalities, beyond the masks that we wear, the nail polish that we put on the outside of the horseshit on top of the diamond of who we really are. Then there'll be master classes between these. And so we're going to do master classes with some of the same teachers and mentors that help me see what it is to be really happy and love my life. But when we get back together in April, we're going to go beyond fear. Now, fear for me, fear was a big one. And what I've come to see is that for most people, even though fear might appear as control, I'm not scared, but I like to be in control. I'm not scared, I just don't want to do much. I'm not scared, but when you actually go beyond fear, which doesn't mean you never feel it, and it doesn't mean you're super brave. It just means fear becomes a helpful guiding principle. Fear wakes you up to being lost in imaginary futures, scary thoughts in your head, and it wakes you back up to the magnificence of what is available to us here and now. Just being who we are, whoever that is, right here, right now. And so we'll learn to go beyond fear together. You'll start to experience a lot more fearlessness and a little bit of bravery. But when you are scared, it's kind of friendly because it's like, psst. It's like having somebody tap you on the shoulder and go, buddy, come on back. You got caught up in a daydream there. would be like a friend noticing that you were having a nightmare and gently waking you so that you don't have to stay in the nightmare. Actually, one of our dogs, I don't know if you have dogs, but one of our dogs will, you'll suddenly see twitch, and, we used to joke, I don't know if he's chasing rabbits or being chased by one, but we'd kind of talk to him and pet him a bit, and he'd settle. Well, that's what fear does for us. Fear is that friendly hand on our shoulder, gently shaking us awake so that we don't have to stay in the nightmare 1 second longer. So again, we're going to take breaks. There'll be more masterclasses. We're going to get back together in June, and we're going to explore what it is to live beyond psychology. So I was when I first started having problems, I was sent to a psychologist and then a psychotherapist and a little time with a psychiatrist. And we got very into my psychology. And then I got interested in self-help and self-development. And of course, there's a lot of psychological principles simplified. They actually call it pop psychology, popular psychology, because it's not as complicated as the real work, but it's still helpful. And I thought that was the game, that if I could just fix my psychology, if I could just take care of all the horrible thoughts and feelings and beliefs and ideas that I had in my head, then I'd be okay. And okay at the time had been the goal. But I think that the day I started to question that was when I read a book called The Voice of Knowledge by Don Miguel Ruiz. He wrote The Four Agreements, if you've ever heard of that book. And somewhere in The Voice of Knowledge, he said, you do not need internal dialogue to live your life. And it was again one of those, oh, that's true. And everything changed. Because now my psychology was still there. I still had the same thoughts and feelings and nutty ideas and weird things coming to mind that I used to. But it didn't look like any of it was essential to living my life. It would be like if you didn't understand clouds. And so you thought, you were a pilot, but nobody explained clouds to you. So you thought, oh, I've got to avoid the clouds. I've got to avoid the clouds. They look really solid. I don't want to crash the plane. I got to avoid the clouds. And then somebody either told you or you accidentally wandered into a cloud bank and came out the other side. And we're like, oh, well, the plane shook a little, but that was fine. Well, that's our psychology. It looks like these insurmountable things that we need to control and fix and avoid. But it has no more actual say in our lives than we give it. We're the ones who've given power to our psychology. And over the 4 days we spend exploring this, we're going to go beyond our psychology. We're going to see what the secrets to mental health and well-being really are. And we're going to learn to bring them to life, to give them the same kind of time and attention that we've spent years giving to our psychology, to our habitual thoughts and feelings. Then we're going to take a few more masterclass breaks, and we'll get back together in September in London. And in London, we're going to explore what is it to go beyond success. So for most people, success is stuff. And the more stuff, the better. So the more money, the more fame, the more houses, the more cars, the more followers, the more whatever. Just more. More is success. But I've had the chance to work with tens of thousands of people who want to be more successful. And it becomes very clear very quickly that you can have all the stuff and still not be happy, still not be at peace, still not love your life. And since this is a program about being really happy and loving your life, we're not going to look at success that way. We're not going to dismiss it because it's really nice to have nice stuff. It's really fun to create cool things in your world and play with them. But any definition of success that isn't rooted in being really happy and loving your life is a really meaningless kind of a success. In fact, I think my first definition of success that was somewhat on point was that success is having peace of mind and a nice piece of real estate wherever you want to be in the world. And so we're going to explore, well, what is it to pursue the things you want from a place of already being complete and whole. Like, what if you didn't need anything to work for you to be really happy and love your life? And some people go, well, why would I do anything? Well, because we do. There's something in us. There's a sort of an aliveness that won't settle for just sitting around all day contemplating our navels. Even if our navels are really cool and we're really enjoying them, there's still something in us that wants to create. I've always thought that that's what it means when it says that human beings are created in God's image. Well, God is a creator in the metaphors, in the stories, so we are creators. We're made to create. But when we create from happiness instead of from need, want, lack, it's a completely different game. In fact, my very first book, You Can Have What You Want, the very first chapter, the very first thing I say is that happiness leads to success a hell of a lot more often than success leads to happiness. So then we're going to get together, we're going to have another masterclass, and then the final 4 days that we spend together back here in LA or live streaming wherever you are in the world, we're going to go beyond happiness. We're going to explore what it is to not even pursue that. Because when you get really in touch with who and what you are, the feeling of that, it goes beyond happiness. It's freaking glorious. It's a whole other level of well-being that we start to feel. It makes sense of phrases like, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And that's what we're going to be exploring in our last 4 days. And by then, I promise you, it won't sound so grand or distant or religious or whatever it sounds like to you when I say it now. And then we'll finish together online in December. Just a chance to kind of share our wins and wows and insights and takeaways. So I get this is a big program. We're going to spend a lot of time together. We're going to talk about a lot of things, and you're going to experience a lot of change. You're going to experience a lot of life new and fresh. And if that scares you, that's okay. And if that sounds exciting, that's great. But the question that I want to leave you with is, do you want to join me? Not why you want to join me. The number of reasons we have for doing things is usually inversely proportional to how much we actually want to do them. Do you want to be part of this program? And if you do, you'll find all the information to join me below. Have fun, learn heaps, happy exploring, and hopefully I'll see you next year. Bye-bye for now.